Hello everyone and welcome to the live Q&A with me, Professor Michael Scott. It is the 25th of April at 4 o'clock. It's a great pleasure that you can join us today to answer some of your fantastic questions, as always, coming in. And we're going to take a couple that we missed off the live feed from last week that I didn't get a chance to respond to before delving into the questions that you've sent in over the week to the Facebook page. So it's greetings from my office here in the University of Warwick. So you can see some of the books that are with me on a daily basis while I do my job up here with the university. Term has just started for us yesterday, and we have been in deep already doing classes on ancient global history, as well as preparing some of the Greek culture and society modules I leave for the first years, as well as having an offer holder open day. And I've also been doing a lunchtime talk today on window and teaching, talking with colleagues from across departments about teaching strategies and styles. So it's been a busy couple of days. I'm sure it has for you. I hope everyone has recovered well from having a nice Easter break and all that amazing sunshine we had over Easter, and is managing to avoid all the incredible rain. We've had hailstorms, we've had thunderstorms, we've had shower storms. It's been quite incredible. Hello everyone, hello. Thank you so much for tuning in. So Linda Montague, you asked last week on the live Q&A, would I get my DNA tested? We were talking about the revelation of Stonehenge, the people who built Stonehenge, looking at some of the DNA showing that they had come originally emerging out of and migrating from the region of Anatolia. Well, I've never had my DNA tested, but I'd be absolutely kind of quite keen and interested to do so. Hello Laura, hello Alexis, hello Natasha, how are you guys doing? Thank you so much all for joining in. I think it'd be great fun to know a little bit about the kind of mixes of people and of origins that come together in yourself, and to compare that with some of the kind of known history about the family, and also kind of perhaps even some things about yourself, kind of in places in the world you go and you like, and see whether they overlap at all. So there we go. Victoria, hello again. Nice to see you. Thank you so much indeed for joining in. So yes, has any of you had your DNA tested, and what were the results? Let us know. Let us know indeed. Colette, you're just watching Italian City series with Zander. So glad you're enjoying. Is that for Naples, Florence and Venice? It was, I think, available on DVD. I'm not quite still sure if it is. If it is, the link will be on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Michael Scott Academic. So yeah, have a look into that. Bethany Churchill also asked on the live Q&A last week, what objects do you think have had the biggest impact on our culture, either in ancient times or today? Now, this is a really great question, and a really hard one as well to kind of think about and offer an answer to, because I guess it all depends on how you define impact, right? Kind of what are we thinking about? Are we thinking about in terms of the ideas that they have harbored and kind of had ingrained in their DNA? As are we thinking about it in terms of inspiration for us to go on and do amazing things? Are we thinking about them in terms of the technological advances that they have allowed us to then go on and kind of achieve? So I mean, I think that might be the kind of the way I would go in answering this question. I would probably think about this in terms of what kind of leaps forward technological advances have objects allowed us to go and do, that really have kind of provided those kind of quantum leaps in human experience and human environment. So I mean, chief among them I think would have to be the wheel, right? And we'd have to put the wheel there as one. That would be a definite one. Thinking back before that, so the arrowhead as well, right? Kind of the definite moving the technological advancement of creating the arrowhead, or indeed the nail. Can we think about fire as an object, the domestication, the control of fire? I mean, that's always thought about as an incredibly important moment in our human story as well. And then we could dial it forward a bit more modern to think about the jet plane, the invention of the jet plane, or the computer, or concrete. I think all of these things would be significant objects that have somehow transported us to another dimension in that sense. So Linda did have her DNA tested, kind of matches the family tree. Excellent. Hello from Spain, Pedro. Hello, Sarah. How are you doing? Thank you so much for joining in. String. Sarah thinks string is one of the objects that have had a massive impact on our work. Absolutely right. Another key one has changed our ways of doing things. But I mean, we could also think about it in in terms of buildings, couldn't we? Buildings that have had inspirational roles in our culture. So we might want to think about the Parthenon as one of those. And each of us, I think, but that might be a more diverse list, because I think each of us would have a very different list of things that have spoken to us. Hello, Rajruba, how are you doing? Thank you so much indeed for tuning in. So a great question from Bethany, and definitely turning the tables, making me define the question this time, as Bethany's one of our students here at Warwick and has been doing the Ancient Global History module with me this year, and it's often been me kind of setting these tough questions that she has had to define and offer an answer to. So definitely turning the tables on me, Bethany. Thank you very much indeed for participating and asking your question. Hello, Denise. Hello from Romania. Thank you so much indeed for tuning in. It's great to have you here. So we have also had a question that came in, now this time over the Facebook page during the course of the week, which was from Maisie Ray and it's Poundsbury. Did you ever go back to the wonderful island of Sicily after filming there for the TV series we did for BBC Two in 2016? John, you've had a DNA test, but surprised to find Spanish ancestry from the Armada. Thank you so much for letting us know. Wow, if people have done this more often, I didn't think so many people have had it done. Sounds like something that kind of we're missing the boat train on, that we haven't had it done yet. I'm sorry to hear, Victoria, that the clouds are affecting the internet and it seems stopping and starting. Hopefully that will kind of calm itself out. Let us know, others, if you're having any problems as well. Hello, James. Greetings from London. Lovely to see you. Thank you so much for tuning in. So Maisie's question was, do I have a favourite place in Sicily? And how did I learn my Italian? Answering those in reverse. So Italian, I took a year out between school and university, partly because I needed to relearn Latin. I had given up Latin early on in my school career, never thinking that I was going to do classics and become a classicist, and then kind of realised the error of my ways in my last year or so at school. And at that stage, really needed to get some Latin back under my belt before I could go and start studying it at university. So I took a year out. Part of that year was spent learning Latin, and part of that year I decided to take myself off to Italy and live in Italy. So I was living in Florence, and I lived with an Italian family, and I did my Italian lessons there in Florence as well. Learnt my Italian kind of partly in the classroom and partly on the streets of Italy, but at least with a good Toscana accent, kind of from the north of Italy, and then have been going back there ever since for work and for, of course, for pleasure and for holidays and for family. So in that sense, Italy is now kind of an absolute favoured part of mine, and I enjoy, kind of love being able to kind of engage with the language as much as with the culture. And one of the things I always enjoy doing is comparing how we change different proverbs, kind of change between languages. I don't know if any of you enjoy this as well. I mean, one of the ones that we found out recently was kind of in English we say you can't have your cake and eat it. But the French would say you can't have, on ne peut pas avoir la beurre et l'argent de beurre, so you can't have butter and money to buy butter. Signifies the importance of butter in French culture. But in Italian, you say something along the lines of you can't have a full bottle of wine and a drunk wife. So there we go. That kind of sends. There you go. You can see the sort of differences. There you go. The cultures there exemplified in the proverbs of the languages. Kind of an absolutely fantastic fun. And we were also having this discussion. My daughter, 3-year-old, has got into Frozen recently, and we were listening to Let It Be, Let It Be, and we were listening to this both in English and in French, as I speak to my daughter in French, and we were looking at how they had translated between the two different languages. And of course Let It Be comes out as libéré, so that's all fine and good, but the line "the cold never bothered me anyway" comes out in French as "the cold, it's the price I pay for my liberty." So some interesting decisions there have been made about translations across the different languages. Hello, Rajruba, how are you doing? The Italian proverb you think fake makes far more sense than the other two. Kind of more than you. Well, it says something about the British needing their cake, the French needing their butter, and the Italians needing their wine. Let it go, let it go. Kind of indeed, kind of how. But it'd be interesting to see how that is translated, or how that proverb is rendered rendered, kind of the idea of you can't have your cake and eat it, in other languages that you guys speak. Kind of let us know how it is rendered in all the different languages that you guys are tuning in from all the different places and all around the world. It'd be really interesting to see kind of quite how much those proverbs change, or indeed we could focus in on Frozen, let it go. Sorry, it's not let it be. What am I saying? Let it be. Let it go. You're absolutely right. Thank you, Glees. Kind of let it go. Let it go. Libérer in French. Délivrer. And you can see that at least Frozen hasn't become inscribed on my body as it has with so many parents who have had to watch it too many times. Not yet, anyway. But let me know how it's translated also in your languages as well. It'd be fascinating to hear. Hello, Alvaro from Chile. Thank you so much indeed for joining in. Right, we must get back to some questions from Maisie. So that's how I learned Italian. But do I have a favourite place? Yes, I do in Sicily, and that would probably be something I would advise you all to go to if you get a chance to go to Sicily. If you are near Selinunte, with those amazing, enormous temples that have collapsed down, then you must also go to another site close by called Cava di Cusa. Now, this is actually an old stone cutting workshop. This is where they went to cut the stone to make the temples at Selinunte. And what makes it utterly extraordinary, in my view, is that it was abandoned in a very, very rushed state in 409 BC, when we know the Carthaginians were invading and the Greeks kind of took tail and ran off. And they left all of these half-finished stones and column drums lying around in this stone quarry. So you can go and see column drums that have been entirely separated out from the stone and that are kind of on their side, ready to be rolled off to be used in a temple. You can see column drums that have just been cut out of the rock around them, but not yet cut off from the bottom to transport them off. You can see column drums that are only kind of half emerging from the rock. It's an extraordinary sight that really has, kind of been frozen in time, allowing you to get a sense of the backbreaking and incredibly skilled craftsmanship that went into just getting the stone to then get it to a location, to then get it into a into a structure. So Victoria, thank you so much. Kind of later pictures. It's nicely in English. In Brazilian Portuguese, they translate "livre és tu," which is kind of "I am free." Okay, interesting. Okay, kind of Alison, you've made it today, but walking the dog in the fresh air at the same time. You are multitasking. Very impressive, Alison. Thank you so much for tuning in. And there's been a couple more people. I've lost you on the feed already, telling us what the proverb is of you can't have your cake and eat it in your language. But please do keep letting us know, and we'll put up a running list on the Facebook page, because it's absolutely fantastic to see the range of ways in which these languages and cultures kind of articulate these ideas. So, Mizzy, thank you so much indeed for your questions re Sicily, but Cava di Cusa near Selinunte, that's absolutely what I would suggest that we go for. And then Will Powell has also had a question, and he was saying he was watching a documentary about Easter, and it got him thinking about gods, and it got him thinking about how long gods have been around for, and gods for particular religions and particular cultures, and how some kind of continue and some die out. And he's asking about what's the earliest evidence of the Greek gods being worshipped, and kind of then how does that compare with some of the other religions? Really, really interesting question, Will. Thank you so much for this. Well, the Greek divinities that we're familiar with, so Poseidon, Dionysus, Artemis, Athena, we first see them appearing kind of in the material record, or the written record rather for them. Some of those deities are appearing in the Mycenaean world. They're appearing in the Linear B tablets, particularly Linear B tablets emerging from Pylos. So that's dating to kind of between about 1600, 100 BC. But there seems to have been a rupture between the Mycenaean kind of pantheon of deities and the culture that we know that came before that, particularly on Crete, the Minoan culture, using a different language, Linear A, which is still to be deciphered in the way that the language of the Mycenaeans, Linear B, has been deciphered. But our indications are that there seems to be a different pantheon of gods, that there aren't any recognisable names of what will become the Greek pantheons if we go back to the Minoan era. So if we're thinking from the Mycenaean onwards, sort of 1600, but of course the Greeks themselves told lots of stories about how their gods went back to the very origins of the universe itself. texts like in the Greek world, Hesiod with his Theogony, his works in days, talking about how in the beginning there was chaos, and out of chaos, out of nowhere came Gaia, nature, Mother Earth, as it were, who completely of herself gave birth to a god who then kind of between the two of them, they then had a whole bunch of children, the Titans, and kind of that kicks off the Greek pantheon. And then, of course, there are these wonderful, horrific stories of family intrigue and difficulty in Gaia encouraging one of her sons, Kronos, to kind of castrate his dad and her kind of partner. And then, of course, indeed, Kronos kind of being done over by Zeus, the god that he tried to eat, but his wife misplaced or kind of repositioned Zeus and gave Kronos a stone instead, and so Zeus was able to grow up and then take over from his dad, and then Zeus becomes the king of the pantheon that we know and love of the gods that we know from the Greek world. So the Greeks told stories about their deities going back to the very beginnings of time, although in terms of our kind of material record for them, we can't see them going back beyond the Mycenaean world. Now, how does that compare with other worlds out there? History of God by Karen Armstrong, Red Rupert is suggesting is a good book to understand the monotheistic religions. Absolutely. Kind of that's well worth having a look at indeed. Thank you for suggesting that. I mean, kind of in terms of the Egyptians, obviously, kind of, we have examples of Egyptian deities emerging in our text from kind of the Egyptian pharaonic period. So from the period of Egyptian society from about 3000 BCE. So starting a lot earlier and continuing in some ways longer than the Greek pantheon, because those deities are still around through into the Greek and Roman period. But those are all kind of deities and groups of divine worlds that have now died out. They were officially outlawed, of course, with the Roman adoption of Christianity at the late end of the 4th century, although we know that worship of the then called pagan deities continued piecemeal for some centuries after that. But thinking about kind of a long, ongoing, continuing religious traditions, we'd have to think about the Hindu world, right? And we'd have to think about the Rig Vedas as texts, dating back to earliest Rig Veda, 1700, 1500 BCE. Now, of course, that isn't Hinduism, that's Vedic religion, but developing and morphing and continuing right through to today in terms of Hindu worship. So kind of that would probably be the answer for the longest kind of surviving, but not necessarily the earliest starting. So thank you very much indeed, Will, for that question. Absolutely brilliant. Really got us into thinking about different religious worlds, and it's great to have your comments as well. Thank you. Do suggest any books that you've read that you think would be really illuminating on this topic as well. If we turn to books for a moment, away from your questions, to think about what's new, 2 books that I wanted to flag with you. We're doing this as a new part of what we do alongside new things that have been discovered and new exhibitions and classics in the news. We're also thinking about great new books that we want to share. 2 from me this week. One is Susan Whitfield's Slaves, Silk, Slaves and Stupas, which is about the material culture of the Silk Road. Just came out in 2018, and we were reading some of this with my Ancient Global History group this week. Absolutely brilliant, we thought, seeking to take several individual objects that have been found at different places on the Silk Roads and tell their story, get involved in some of the difficulties of understanding their story, and as a result, through those objects, exemplify and outline and open up the world of the Silk Road. So that was absolutely brilliant, well recommended. And then also we've had Karl Harper, The Fate of Rome, Climate, Disease and the End of an Empire, kind of thinking about how powerful nature can be, wrestling with even some of the greatest metropolitan creations of human history of Rome, the first city of more than 1 million people. Kind of absolutely worth having a look at as well. So those are 2 books I'd suggest have a look at. In terms of in the news, the things that have been happening, we've had a Roman wreck with loads of Roman roof tiles that's been found off the island of Malat in Croatia. That's come out of the Association of Roman Archaeology, and we'll be posting the links to all of these on the Facebook page, of course. We've had a new kingdom tomb down in Luxor, in Egypt's Luxor, dating back to the 18th dynasty, kind of 18 different entrance gates believed to have belonged to a nobleman known as Sedsujaji, and they're kind of fantastic to hear about that. Again, Egypt, just absolutely tons of stuff coming out at the moment. There's also been kind of rock-cut tombs, Greco-Roman rock-cut tombs in Aswan that have been found. And then perhaps two of my favourites, going back to Greece, during the new metro construction up in the north in Thessaloniki, they've been finding lots of amazing things, and particularly relating to the goddess Aphrodite. Yes, in the construction of the metro network, there's been a treasure trove of artefacts, gold wreaths, rings, statues of goddess Aphrodite, more than 300,000 artefacts, and really kind of relating to kind of real people's everyday lives. These aren't just simply buildings. These are coins, jewellery, marble statues, amphorae, oil lamps, perfume vases. They found in what we think was probably the thriving commercial centre of the ancient city. So just that sense of the objects that they had around them on a daily basis as they went about their business. And then in particular, another kind of sense of the everyday, coming from the Archaeology magazine, we've had Roman soldiers' scribbles. Now this is absolutely brilliant. You've got to check this out when we put the link up on the Facebook page. So from a material they were looking and examining in a stone quarry in Cumbria's Gelt Woods, where obviously the Romans were kind of grabbing stone to do some renovations for Hadrian's Wall. Roman soldiers having a bit of off time, perhaps not working quite as efficiently and as quickly as they should have been, were carving personal inscriptions in the stone quarry, and amazing insight into kind of what a Roman soldier was thinking of doing even when they were supposed to be on duty. So things like funny cartoons, good luck, phallic symbols, and particularly there seems to be a humorous caricature of the overly demanding boss, Agricola of the whole Roman force. So kind of even those Roman soldiers occasionally took the mick out of their senior officers. Greetings to you, Amy, in Utah. Thank you so much for tuning in. Absolutely fantastic. And absolutely, Samantha, you were at Vindolanda when they found the gaming board. Yes, they found the gaming board this week as well, scratched into the stone there. We posted, this has been, I think, on the Twitter feed, but we'll make sure it's on the Facebook feed as well. Absolutely, they found the gaming board. So at some point, Romans have decided to create a gaming board and stone, and then you can imagine them chatting as they played a game or two of something. Absolutely. And Andrew Burley is a legend at Vindolanda. I'm so glad the season is going so well. Last week we had talked about their discoveries of cloth and the other things that have been coming out from this early season. It really is kind of an amazing what they managed to find there every week. And talking about things that are on every week, we must kind of quickly mention, so this Saturday, the 27th, I am at Buckingham History Festival. If hopefully some of you can come along. I'll be talking at 11:30 to 12:30, talking about ancient global history. So that's Buckingham History Festival. Do please get your tickets. It'd be great to see you there. Please do come and say hello after the talk. But also, if you're in the Warwick area, please do come along and join us for an open lecture that's coming up on the 1st of May. We've got an IAS, the Institute of Advanced Study Visiting Fellow, which is Dr. Danelle Padilla Peralta from Princeton University, who is over to talk to us about the Etruscan Negro from coin to memory to racial politics. This will be an absolutely fascinating lecture, open to the public as well. So please do come along and join us. That's from 5 to 6:30 in Oculus 0.04. And then if you happen to be in St. Petersburg anytime from now through until the 23rd of June, then you must get yourself along to the Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg. I would so love to go to this museum. I have not been. It was absolutely one of the things I'd love to do, to see their exhibition that they've got, God, Men, Heroes, from the Naples National Archaeological Museum and the Archaeological Park of Pompeii. So a huge collection, more than 200 masterpieces have gone from Italy over to St. Petersburg as part of this exhibition, to then be mixed in with the extraordinary collection that the Hermitage has as well. I think I've been told that the Hermitage has, not on display, but kind of in its stores as well, something like 400,000 Greek vases. Ooh, get to grips with 400,000 Greek vases. Absolutely sounds fantastic. So those are some ideas about stuff that is going on around the world. We've got, two other things I wanted to mention to you. Yes, online we have the Warwick Classics Network, which is our network that we work with here to help support and the teaching of classics in schools, and also the introduction of the teaching of classics into schools, particularly in the Coventry and Warwickshire area. And one of the things that we do is that we set up a whole series of videos by academics here in the department, talking about themes related to the GCSE and A-level curriculum for classical civilization and ancient history. So you can check out those videos online. If you Google Warwick Classics Network, #AskAnAcademic, and you will find those videos. So people like Professor Sarah Newby, Professor James Davidson, and we just released 2 more, which is me talking about the Ancient Greek Symposium. Now, we do something rather special at Warwick with our first years. We recreate the Ancient Greek Symposium using replica Greek vases that we had created, and we get them to assume the position of the symposiasts and drink from these vessels and think about how they would have interacted with the images. So you can see a 2-part video by me, some of me talking, and also seeing some of our students engaged in kind of recreating the symposium. An absolutely fantastic experience that you can be part of as well. Alison, yes, thank you for reminding us. King Tut is on in London from October at the Saatchi Gallery. I think we mentioned that last week as well, so do get along to that. Go and have a look also the new Greek Symposium videos. So that's www.warwick.ac.uk/WCN, and then look for Ask an Academic. Alison's reading a book called Black Tudors in 1500 England. Absolutely, another fantastic book, really worth kind of getting a look at. And the last thing is to shout out about what we're doing on the Facebook page, is that we have started a post celebrating classics teachers around the world. So if you have a great classics teacher in your past or in your present, someone you really just want to say thank you to, someone you really want to shout about how much they've inspired you for teaching you something to do with the ancient world, then do drop us a line to tell us about that story, and then we'll get in touch and hopefully can celebrate that publicly on the Facebook page as well. Kind of fantastic. Thank you so much indeed. Right, have we got time? Yes, we've got time for one more question. Thanks, Claire, for putting up all the links last night. Brilliant. They're all on FB, ready to go. We have Caroline. This was Caroline Nicklin asked, the ancient Greek states had some robust sentences for leaders who messed up. Is there a favourite punishment you would like to revive for the current crop of British politicians? Well, as we get back into the Brexit debacle, as everyone comes back off their holidays, I'm sure there'll be many of us wanting to kind of have some kind of punishments in store to try and get kind of the MPs at least talking to one another more constructively, more of the time, rather than shouting at one another. And for me, kind of thinking about the ancient Greek states, well, of course, the big thing that ancient Athens had was ostracism. So this was where kind of there would be a big public vote, and the loser of the public vote simply had to pack up their bags and head out of town for quite some time, up to 10 years in theory, and sort of just absent themselves from politics. Now, this wasn't a kind of vote without its issues. So the reason it's called ostracism is that people had to write the name of the person that they wanted ostracized on a piece of pottery, a shard of pottery, known in ancient Greek as an ostraca, and they had to then, those would be counted up, and the person who had the most votes would be ostracized. But there has been a large collection of 100 and so ostraca found from a particular kind of archaeological find spots in Athens, and they all contain or have written on them the name of Themistocles, right? So well and good, right? So he had lots of votes about him once upon a time to be ostracized. But when they analysed the handwriting of these ostraca, they realised that these many ostraca were only actually written by 11 different people. So what was going on here was an enterprising group of people writing lots of ostraca with all different names on, so that people who perhaps couldn't write so well could pick up one of these prefabricated ostraca for the person they wanted to vote to be ostracized and hand that in. That's a positive spin on the evidence. A negative spin on the evidence is that there was some pretty blatant vote rigging going on. So even those ancient Greek practices for dealing with corrupt politicians weren't necessarily infallible, although it's almost impossible for us to know which of those two interpretations we should go for in relation to that ancient evidence. So I leave you with that kind of hanging kind of idea. Let me know what your thoughts are. Should we go for the positives? This was people kind of setting up these tokens so that people who couldn't necessarily write could vote, or was vote rigging going on? Let us know what you think. Maybe we'll put a poll up on the Facebook Facebook page, and you can vote over the course of the week. So thank you so much for tuning in. Lots of great questions we haven't had a chance to get to, but look forward to answering them in the next couple of weeks. There is going to be no Q&A next week, Thursday the 2nd of May, because I'm going to be on a plane flying to Italy, but we will be back on the 9th of May, Thursday the 9th of May, and I will be down at the Warwick in London campus base at the Knowledge Centre just by King's Cross, as that night I'm going to be doing my Warwick in London campus lecture thinking about ancient Greece on television, which you are all very welcome to come to. Please sign up indeed to the Warwick in London lecture on the 9th of May with a live Q&A just before it. So kind of nothing next week on the 2nd, but we will be back the week after on the 9th. I'm very much looking forward to seeing you then. Hope you have an absolutely fantastic rest of this week and next week. Do keep sending in your questions to the Facebook page, www.facebook.com/Michael Scott Academic. You are absolutely fabulous. It's your questions that keep this going and making it so fun and enjoyable. Or you can send them to michaelscottacademic@gmail.com. And don't forget also to keep telling us about your fantastic classics teachers as well. Have a great rest of the week, and thank you so much for tuning in.